Welcoming you into Reser Stadium, Brenden Slaughter, BeaversEdge Publisher here, coming live after Oregon State's 55-7 win over UC Davis. Oregon State opens the new digs of Reser Stadium in style today with a crushing blowout win of the Aggies. A lot to break down, a lot to get into. Thanks for joining us here at BeaversEdge.com, and make sure to stay tuned to BeaversEdge.com for all the rest of our post-game content coming at you from tonight. Big takeaways right away. This game was never in doubt from the first play from scrimmage for Oregon State, where Damian Martinez took it to the house. Obviously, it turned out to be a huge offensive explosion today for Oregon State, and conversely, there was just never really much of a chance for UC Davis. I mean, diving into some of the numbers, I mean, Oregon State was up to a 55-0 lead at one point. We even just got time in the post-game press conference and heard from the defense they actually really wanted to keep that shutout alive. Unfortunately, UCD was able to get that late touchdown score, but this was about as good of a game as you could have asked for from Oregon State. Big takeaways right off the bat. DJU, most of the offense, only plays a half of football. We see an entire second half of Aiden Childs, and he was pretty impressive. I mean, obviously last week was a big one for Childs, getting into his first collegiate action, and then today, of course, him getting in there as well. He ends up going 9 for 13 for 74 yards and a touchdown, and really looked quite comfortable. And the touchdown throw he made to Riley Sharp, again, second straight week he found Riley Sharp, so maybe a little connection growing between those two. And then defensively, I mean, you have to look at what Oregon State was able to do in this game. A little bit of criticism maybe last week as they weren't able to get after the quarterback maybe as much as people thought, but I think that was more game plan, and the Beavers even said that this week with how good of a runner Cordero was from San Jose State compared to Miles Hastings for UC Davis. On the other hand, was not much of a threat to run at all. Oregon State ends up telling quite a few negative plays here. I mean, looking at a couple turnovers, some sacks, and more than anything, like just the tackles for loss, over double-digit tackles for loss, got the 2 turnovers, and more than anything was really just in sync with what they wanted to do. UC Davis was never able to get anything going, and from that, Oregon State was able to take advantage and get the win. So again, Oregon State 55, UC Davis 7. Oregon State returns here to Reser Stadium this next weekend to host San Diego State in the last of their non-conference tune-ups before opening up Pac-12 play against Washington State. A couple other things that stand out from the box score here in front of us here at Reser Stadium tonight is, again, Oregon State also special teams was a lot cleaner tonight. You look at Atticus Sappington hitting a couple field goals. The punting was cleaner today after having that blocked, and talking to Jonathan Smith in the post-game press conference, he noted just how much, a lot of the little things, talking to him, talking to Coach Lindgren and Coach Bray at practice this week, it really seemed like they had a lot of little things they wanted to get cleaned up. Jonathan said from his perspective, he felt like they did well in that regard. So something else to like there for Oregon State, and more than anything, again, the Beavers are able to get the big win and head into the final week of non-conference play feeling pretty good about themselves as they handled what we think is a middle to maybe upper echelon Mountain West team on the road in week 1 with ease. They come here, and again, Oregon State fans always know an FCS team can be a little scarier sometimes if you don't take them for granted rather. And Jonathan Smith talked about it again tonight. His teams have never really had that stub toe, so to speak, or even really tough moments with FCS teams, even going back to his first years, and tonight was just the case in point with that. Entering this game, I was really thinking back to the Montana State game last year. Beavers played at Providence Park. Very similar FCS team. I think Montana State was a little bit better, but I was curious just to see how they played in this game as compared to that one. And Montana State put up 28 points in that game. Obviously, Oregon State won going away, but I think this is, impressive when you look at everything that the defense had lost in the offseason to now. There were a lot of question marks across the board, and perhaps they haven't been tested as much as they will in Pac-12 play. That's understandable. The returns from these first 2 weeks have been impressive, so you got to give kudos to that side of the ball. And I mentioned it earlier, but getting after the quarterback, the tackles for loss, they were never in sync, and more than anything, the defensive line was just blowing up UC Davis's offensive line. There were a few times that they were able to break free and get some big runs, but I think back to the turnover that stuck out to me the most was when Drew Chatfield was able to get his hand tipped on the ball, and then Easton Mascarenas Arnold was able to make a big time play. I mean, those were moments that energized the crowd. And speaking of the crowd itself, I mean, folks, if you weren't here tonight, you probably caught a little bit of it on TV, but those that were here, I mean, what an environment for this game. I mean, Oregon State opens up the brand new Reser Stadium. Very cool lighting. Oregon State changed the lights, so now they can go on and off instantaneously. They did some really cool moments where the stadium glowed orange. It's definitely got some cool vibes to it, and talking to the players post-game, they were really excited about it. So again, make sure to check out the press conference there at BeaversEdge.com. And again, a couple more stats of note as as we kind of go through here and look at it. Obviously, another big play was Silas Bolden's punt return touchdown. You know, that was a big time play in this game. And with Anthony Gould out, again, Oregon State announced just before kickoff Anthony Gould would not play. Good news for the Beavers heading into next week. It doesn't sound like his injury is serious at all. Jonathan said he expects him to be back this next week, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. But again, balance across the board. It was great to see a bunch of young guys get in. I mean, more than just Aiden Childs. I mean, we're talking second team offensive line, second team defensive backs. We saw Alton Julian get out there and get some reps towards the end of the game. I know the Beavers are trying to ramp him up as we get closer to Pac-12 play. So while Aiden Childs may have been, the star of the backups coming in, you also got to give credit to those other backups who came in and really helped stymie that UC Davis offense until, late in the game when they were finally able to get that touchdown. So again, the final here at Reser Stadium, UC Davis puts just 7 points on the board as Oregon State rolls to a 55-7 victory. The Beavers will now break for the week and obviously get back into their practice schedule for the week and prepare for the last non-conference matchup against San Diego State. So again, big thanks to everyone for listening and watching this edition of the Edge post-game breakdown. Make sure to stay locked to BeaversEdge.com. We're going to continue to bring you guys a ton more content. And again, final here from Reser Stadium. Oregon State 55, UC Davis 7.